Summer is officially here, baby, and we could think of no better way to stay cool this summer than by giving back to others. On September 1st, Laura and I will be donating $1 for every rating and $2 for every written review on Apple Podcasts to a charity that you, our listeners, get to help us pick. Follow us on our socials at Impolite Society Podcast to find out more about how we're going to be picking our charity and to weigh in and let us know what charity you want us to support. But that's not it, because not only are you helping us help others, you also have a chance to help yourself. Not only are we going to be cutting a check to a charity on September 1st, we are also going to be choosing a written review at random to win a $50 gift card and some Impolite Society swag. So if you leave us a review, let us know by taking a screenshot and emailing it to us at rude@impolitesocietypodcast.com or slip it into the DMs of any of our socials. Fixing this messed up world is hard, but when you take a couple seconds to leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts, you can rest assured that you did something positive with your summer and you helped us improve the world $1 at a time. Thank you so much for listening. Now to the show.
You're listening to Impolite Society with Laura and Rachel.
'Cause I may be bad, but I'm perfectly good at it. Shh, in the air, I don't care, I love the smell of it.
I think you missed a word.
This was the radio edit.
It's not the podcast edit, the explicit podcast edit.
No. This is a raunchy podcast, but I could never say that word. Because you know it bums me out unless it's between the word meat and pizza.
Sex.
You know it.
Meat, sex, pizza.
And when you hear meat, sex, pizza, that means you are listening to Impolite Society with Laura and Rachel. I'm Rachel.
I'm Laura.
And together we are the podcast that digs into the taboo, one rude question at a time. Each episode we have a salacious topic that we dig into, and we do some research and try to find the answer to a rude question. Let me just say to start off this week, RIP my internet's browser's history.
Yeah, I did all of this research in incognito mode. In fact, one time I forgot to put myself incognito mode, and I was like, oh, fuck. Because, guys, we're getting sexy this week. It's especially sexy if you think that CBT, celeriophobia, and paraphilic infantilism is sexy, that is. And hey, if you do, no judgment here.
Can I ask another thing that you might not judge me on or to not be judged on?
Yes.
If I did not know what some of those words mean, and I'm confident I will not be able to pronounce them either.
They were very new to me as well, so don't feel bad. But they're actually a part of a whole world, a whole subculture that we're going to be talking about today.
One would say underground. I feel like a lot of this stuff happens underground.
Well, it's certainly not mainstream. These were deep. This is deep cuts, guys. And it is the whole world or community, which is what they call themselves, that is BDSM or S&M.
Which we might recall is the name of that song that I was singing by
Riri.
Rihanna. Oh, yeah, come on with some BDSM.
So I said at the top, no judgment here, but let's be honest. This is impolite society. Being impolite means being honest. I'm going to try to reserve some of my judgmenty. Rachel has her patriarchal corner. Laura has her judgmental corner. I'm going to try to bar that off until we get later into the section.
I think that's a fair thing to point out is that it's anti-patriarchal. I'm not saying I'm not over here. This is my corner where I perpetuate the patriarchy. This is where I try to tear it down. One episode at a time. One corner at a time.
There's a whole lot going on with the BDSM community, like I said. But my rude question today is around, some of the psychology of this world. And I will get into what all those terms mean. But my impolite question today for you.
I'm so titillated.
Does wanting to be spanked mean that I hate myself?
Ow! I'm sorry.
You sound like a Pomeranian. Ow, ow, ow.
And that is such a good question because sex is so complicated and things that you would never want to happen in real life are sometimes things that are, like I said, titillating in the bedroom or the red room or the dungeon, wherever you participate in activities. And I think there's a lot of layers to unpack, not just what is it, but what's kind of the psychology behind it. Like you said, does it mean that you don't respect yourself if you let somebody do something to you, or if you enjoy having somebody do something to you?
Or is the one that enjoys doing the things.
That would make your stomach turn kind of after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive in here because I threw a lot of terms out, right?
So many.
All right. So let's start at the basics. BDSM. What does it stand for?
Okay. So is it big devotion soft massages?
It is not. Big, dumb, stupid man was what one of the Urban Dictionary sites suggested, which made me laugh. But no, that's not correct. It is the combination of abbreviations for bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and sadism and masochism.
Whoa, so there's 3 in a 4-letter word. There's
Yes.
a lot going on.
It's confusing. Like, it's like a little graph about how they overlap because there's several for the D's and S's.
Whoever put that together in the dungeon was like, fuck yeah, this is some big brain shit here. You were going to add another letter in there, you fucking idiot? No, we don't need that. I got
We don't
you.
need double letters. I got this shit.
Yeah.
And so S&M tends to be what us normies kind of focus on, and that's, you might hear BDSM abbreviated as S&M. Again, so that's sadism and masochism. And sadism is getting off on inflicting pain. Masochism is getting off from that pain. That tends to be what everyone puts their eyes on. But enthusiasts say it's about a lot more than that. And we'll get into that in a bit. I think S&M is something that we've all heard about, right? But how common is it really? The Kinsey Institute, I always want to put an L in there, but that's not right. It's the Kinsey Institute says that about 5 to 10% of Americans occasionally engage in some kind of sexual activity that falls into the BDSM category. Now, they weren't real specific on what this was, because, I mean, it ranges the gamut.
No, truly, that could be anywhere from, light spanking as we tease at the top to having a full contraption that wraps around your twig and berries.
Your parts,
yes, which we've seen pictures of now, thanks to research. So you're welcome, listener. My eyeballs are scarred.
Yeah.
I'm a little aroused. It's fine.
I didn't know that Wiki had such explicit images, honestly.
It's for science and research. I don't know.
Yeah, look up some of these terms, y'all. Go to Wiki, look it up, see what you get. It's a treat, let me tell you. So yeah, that's a really wide range. It's hard to get a read on this because people are secretive about their sex lives, right? On the spectrum, that they analyzed, rates were significantly higher for males and females that were in homosexual and bisexual relationships. And that kind of tracks for me. I don't know about you. I mean, bisexual, definitely more exploratory individuals.
Yeah.
Not bound by traditional social mores or sexual mores. And homosexual, I think that kind of makes sense to me too, because
They're sexual deviants, Laura?
No.
Boom. Called out.
You think about, like leather bars, like gay leather bars. Like that seems to be where a lot of this came from in the beginning. And they've kind of built their community.
I could see that because there's actually research that shows because men are considered hypersexual and women are considered lower sexual, that when you have same-sex couples, for men, it's actually higher sexualized so that they have more partners, have more sex more often. And I could see where it would then progress into more exploratory or different kinds of sex.
Yeah, I always say that gay men are, I'm not going to say this. At least I'm going to say it. You better not put this in the podcast because I'm like, oh, this sounds bad. I'm like, gay men are an example of how disgusting men are.
Yeah, we can't have that in the podcast.
No, I just mean, that's what I'm saying. any time. So you get two dudes together, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah! Women are the ones who are like, slow your roll.
Well, yeah, because women have a little bit more societal pressure to keep that under wraps. Some of that might be salvageable. Not to saying that gay people are the worst of humanity. It's fine.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean that men are disgusting. That's what I mean. Gay and straight. Men are gross.
But especially the gay ones.
Shut up. Stop making me look bad. It's not what I think. All right. So, BDSM, we defined the term, but what is it, right?
Yeah, and we defined it, and we know that, like, okay, 5 to 10, 1 out of 10. Okay, think about that. The next time you're on some work Zoom call that has 15 people in it, look at all of those faces and know that one of them has had an apparatus on their genitals. Just saying.
So we've talked about all these different phrases, but what is it? You got an acronym, but what is it? So it takes a ton of different forms. It's as basic as, a little pinch here, a biting there,
Chomp.
a spanking, some fuzzy handcuffs that you get in Spencer's Gifts. We've talked about Spencer's Gifts and me being there many a times in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Which I'm glad it came up again because somebody on Reddit was kind enough to point out that they did not encourage you to buy any of that stuff because it was not intended for sexual purposes.
I know, because I bought stuff there when I was 16 and I was like, I want to buy this. Don't look at me funny.
Was it fuzzy handcuffs? Was it a riding crop?
No, it was not. But that's a story for another day. But for those seriously in the game, there are a lot of toys involved. The kind that you cannot get at any Spencer's that I have ever visited.
Yeah, you could get it at Home Depot, though, for some of it.
Some of it. It seems like a really expensive habit. Like,
you have to have hobbies.
Yeah, and you invest in you invest in what you love, right?
Yeah.
So we've got crops, whips, chains, ropes.
Now that sounds like a Dr. Seuss book that deserves to get canceled.
And ropes tied in ways that are so specialized, they recommend online that you take a class so you know how to do it properly. And all kinds of leather gear that's molded and strappy and, just all kinds of shit.
The one that covers your whole body, like skin tight. Oh my God, it must be so sweaty in there.
Those latex things, I love that, like, full, like, black leather, like, dipped look. Not like the face
because of
mask.
Michelle Pfeiffer in the Batman movies.
100%. That is where that comes from. Catwoman was my idol as a kid. I had posters of her on my bedroom wall, and my mom ripped them down because I think she thought I was becoming a lesbian.
Hey, I had a picture of Fran Drescher on my wall. I don't know what that says, but I thought about it.
The nanny.
Yeah. Bitch was hot and funny.
I love that voice. I know people bitch about Fran Drescher's voice, but I love it. I love a unique voice. All right. And there are all kinds of activities to go along with this list.
If you got toys, you got to play with them, and there's different games.
You got accessories, you want to put them in action.
Exactly.
So let me pull out a few of these that were new to me or particularly interesting. Some of those I teased at the beginning.
Ooh, teasing.
Ooh, teasing. My French feather, my little feather here, and tease you guys.
You did study.
With my CBT, which is cock and ball torture.
Oh my God, it sounds so much worse when you say all the words. Because when you first say CBT, it sounds like, oh, is that like a new kind of like hemp thing? Like a new kind of marijuana, medical
CBD,
marijuana?
Yeah.
And it's like, that sounds very calming and relaxing. But then once you throw the word, okay, it's an aggressive. Cock is an aggressive word.
Oh, that's my favorite word for it.
What?
Yeah. What do you... Dick?
What do I call
do you prefer
it?
dick?
I don't refer to it.
Oh, you should definitely.
Shit, maybe I
it.
am a lesbian. I don't know.
Cock is definitely my favorite of all the descriptors for sure.
That feels violent, and then also you throw torture on there, which man,
the T word, man.
That's heavy.
It is
not like cock and ball. Tickling? I don't know what else you would call it. Cock and ball.
Titillating.
All the synonyms. I can't think of. Where's my fucking thesaurus? Right now, I need a thesaurus.
And speaking of heavy, there are some images. Did you see the ones on Wikipedia?
Oh, I did. I looked at them. I might have saved some for later.
And it's like a weight that they put on the ball, so it like super stretches it down. And I was like, oh
yeah, because you got your regular cock rings, you got your ones that pull and extend the balls, which I read about, but because it keeps the balls from retracting into the peen.
Or like the abdominal cavity.
Yeah, I am not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. But it keeps it from doing that, so it's supposed to make your orgasms better. But then also, the one that got me was this guy bent over, like he was in a fetal position.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he had, like the stocks from like medieval village where you got in trouble and they threw tomatoes at you. And his little balls were in there.
We're kind of going off topic, but I think it's something to mention. So in all of these wiki articles about this, there was a lot of pictures. And what honestly got me about them was not necessarily what was going on in the pictures. It was how public
it's just on Wikipedia.
Scenes are. No. Like a lot of them are people like on stages.
Oh, I saw that for the next thing on the list here.
Yeah, but there were several others. And the next thing on the list, we're equal opportunity here in the BDSM community.
Equal opportunity torturers.
And the next thing that I thought was interesting was pussy torture.
Again, it's a strong choice of a word.
My second favorite sexual word. What else do you call it? My vagina? My vulva? That's not sexy.
We're very clinical.
I imagine like you in the bedroom be like, yes, touch my labia minora, touch my labia majora.
Yes, and then slightly like to the right and then over and then up and then, you got to know what you're dealing with. Hello, my perineum. Which is a word Laura taught me when she told me about it tearing during childbirth. Where's that on the BDSM playlist?
I'm sure there's all kinds of tearing going on because there was a lot of mention of fisting and things like that.
Because we talked about the various ways one might torture a cock and a ball. The vulva, I feel like, is worse. It's even harder to talk about, but maybe that's the patriarchy because we're programmed to think that women's genitalia is gross and icky.
No, I think it's harder because it doesn't dangle outside. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems easier to torture.
One of the pictures you showed me. You tainted me with these pictures. I'm calling my rabbi. I'm not even Jewish. I don't know why I said that. No, one of the pictures was somebody pouring hot wax onto an exposed vulva. And it was on stage at a music festival.
That's what I'm saying. The public nature of all of this is kind of what got under my skin. But I think there's a lot of pictures on Wikipedia from this Folsom Street Festival, which is like I might be saying that wrong. I don't have that in front of me. But it's this BDSM like festival. And I was like, oh, man, that's some intense shit.
Well, I will say it's not just at those festivals because here's a secondary story, which is a story that is not mine that I'm going to tell like it's mine. But there's these clubs in Los Angeles. My neighbor.
She's been?
Oh, no, it's just she would like go to these clubs and there's just like one that had like she told me all about it one day on an art night because we're like old now and that's what we do is we drink like champagne and make art. So she was talking about these clubs that they had where they had this big X and you would get strapped into, and these women who were not being paid, by the way, I asked if they were performers. She said no, they were just women who came to the club. And then this man would whip you, also not being paid. These are just random people that would come to this club to be whipped in front of others. Like my stomach was like, oh, like did somersaults.
Yeah, me, I'm over here face palming. There was a similar club in St. Louis, I think it was Mississippi Nights, back when I used to go to live music events when I was younger. There was definitely like kink nights at one of the clubs. I think it was Mississippi Nights, and I did not go, but I heard them talking about it, and I was like 18. I'm like, ooh!
It's so scandalous, but you're like intrigued, but scandalous, and that's what we're relying on to get clicks on this episode.
Damn, Skippy.
Okay, those are the basics, like just straight tormenting human
Torture.
genitalia. Fair.
All right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on here. So another term that was new to me was edge play. Edge play involves breath play, things like choking your partner out, fire play, quote unquote, knife play, gun play. Huge red flags, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Some other things. Golden showers. I think we all know what that is. Paraphilic infantilism, which is where people want to be babies. So they wear diapers. They get bottles. They get cuddled and spanked.
Honestly, every morning when an alarm goes off, I'm like, I want to be a baby again. But not for sexual reasons, just because I want to sleep and I want people to bring me a bottle. I want to be waited on.
You want to wake your mom up at 6:30 in the morning where she's like, ah!
Yeah, I want to be the alarm clock. I don't want to be woken up by the alarm clock.
I don't even set an alarm clock anymore, Rachel.
It's just your baby being like, here's what you have to live for right here. It's me. This is why you wake up every morning. She's just gently reminding you that.
No, she's just waking me up every morning. Anyhoodle. And then there's cerealiophilia. This is an interesting one that I had not heard before. So this is basically soiling the object of your desire. So like messing up the thing that you like. This involves a lot of different things. It kind of relates up to golden showers. It also relates to pooing on your person.
2 girls, 1 cup,
Yep.
a classic, an internet classic.
Yep, that kind of thing. Also, coming on the face is kind of grouped in this, which I thought was interesting because that's such a common, porn thing.
Oh, yeah, that's like how every porn ends.
Exactly.
Is it just the face or is it any part of the
No,
body?
it's kind of any part of the body. I think the face is probably the most,
Like back of knees, too.
Yeah, sure, why not? But I think
that was really just a random question. Just curious.
But,
Don't ask more about it.
The idea is like, okay, you have this object of lust or affection, and then you destroy it in various ways of like defiling it, basically.
Yeah, and I feel like that goes back to the power part, the
Totally.
power play of it, of like the dominant and this submissive. Like I can do whatever I want to you, even if it's like the grossest thing imaginable.
Exactly. Hi, y'all. It's Laura. Rachel and I want to tell you about another indie podcast you should be listening to. Hello Out There podcast. Hello Out There is an improvised serial podcast that takes a road trip through the apocalypse. Follow Andy and Number 4 through their wasteland wanderings and meet some characters along the way. New episodes drop every Thursday. Make sure you tune in and let them know that we sent you.
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Number 4.
And I was raised in a bunker before the nuclear apocalypse. And I ran away and I stole my parents' van.
She also stole me. I'm a sentient, talking, potted plant. And Andy made sure to grab me on the way out. I'm not sure if I appreciate it or not yet, but we've had a grand time interviewing people all across the wasteland.
Yeah, it's been a real good time. We've met marauders and scavengers and all kinds of interesting folks. So check it out wherever you find your podcasts. Sometimes it's even funny.
See who we meet next. Maybe it'll be you. Maybe it'll be your friends. Maybe it'll be legendary improv actor Mel Schwartz.
Maybe it'll be Mel Brooks. What if we got Mel Brooks?
Let's get Mel Brooks. If you survived the nuclear apocalypse, get in touch with us. You can reach us at podoutthere@gmail.com.
Check us out at podoutthere.com or anywhere you find your podcasts.
So I threw a lot of hot button
That
things
was
out
shocking.
there.
That was a shocking list and a lot of shocking links, I should say.
There's a lot of other stuff involved here, but really the biggest part of BDSM, according to the community, is informed consent. And they are a community. They are definitely like a group of people that they get together, they talk about these things, they have parties, scenes in their dungeon. They're a very organized crew. And they have a motto, and that is safe, sane, and consensual, SSC. Everything is based on safe activities, that all participants are sufficiently sound mind to consent, and that all participants do consent. So that is kind of the motto. But, so that safe part seemed a little odd to me, because some of the things that we talked about there, are decidedly unsafe. Edge play, gun play, breath play, a knife play. These are some pretty deep stuff, and they acknowledge
I think
that.
That's looking at the trees and at the forest, because that's one specific area. Because there's a lot more.
Exactly.
There's many ways to torture a cock. That's how the old saying goes. Am I right?
That's the old saying. There's more than one way to torture a cock. Totally. And you're right. Those are really extreme examples. But they do have another kind of motto for people who dip into this deeper pool, right? And that's rack, which is appropriate, as you can imagine.
Oh, no. I was thinking like the medieval torture device, the rack.
Oh, I was thinking about boobs. So RAC stands for Risk Aware Consensual Kink. But the overall theme is that it's all about consent. There's a lot of communication involved. And I think that's something that Hollywood kind of glosses over because that's not interesting, right?
Nobody wants to watch people have a conversation about what you can and can't do to me and like what parts of me you shouldn't insert things into. And that's boring.
Exactly. And so that's kind of glossed over, but there is a lot of communication both before and after scenes. That's what they call sessions, is scenes. So consent is given before through that conversation, but it's revoked at any time throughout these sessions. In theory, if you're familiar with 50 Shades of Grey, they might write out contracts just like they did in the movie. You know, those aren't legally binding contracts, but they kind of get everyone on the same page. And the idea is that the submissive is never really out of control within these sessions. It's all about surrendering control to someone. This is someone that you trust explicitly. And the submissive ultimately decides when to start and stop. And then, you know, that's safe word and red, yellow, green light, that kind of thing. All kind of like code words and things that they use to communicate.
Okay, can I just say, I would love to watch that daytime court TV show that is about negotiating these BDSM contracts and like arguing them, and it'd be like, oh, here's your judge, CT tortures, bump 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 bump, all rise in their pants.
You said CT tortures and it's CB tortures. Don't forget about the B in the CBT torture, because the balls are the most torturous parts of the CBT.
I still, every time you say it, I think it's a drug. Anyways.
So anyways, the psychology of it, you know, we tease kind of at the beginning, doesn't mean that I hate myself, doesn't mean that I'm, you know, a little mentally unstable.
That I have no respect for my personhood or my body, that I would let it literally become an object for somebody else's pleasure.
So from the community, they say BDSM, it's kind of given a bad rap. It's thought of as being all about the pain. But from their point of view, in which I can understand this, it's more about the psychology of it. You know, there's power, there's humiliation, there's pleasure, there's, quote, the sensations experienced by the different emotions of the mind. And I can understand this, right? So being submissive is basically a form of escape. You're being controlled by this person and you're completely relinquishing control. You feel maybe safe or protected or being taken care of the kind of way that a child is. And a dominant might enjoy that feeling of power and authority. They like to be in control. That gives them confidence and strength, and they receive pleasure through the pleasure of the masochist, through inflicting pain.
Well, I would just say, if your hands are tied, literally, you ain't have to be doing anything. Everything is happening to you, which makes you kind of the center of attention, which makes it's all about you in that sense. Granted, okay, so it flips the script, right? So, I mean, you don't have to be focusing on somebody else's pleasure, even though technically the whole thing is about them and them getting pleasure out of inflicting stuff on you.
But you don't have to do anything. Yeah, you just kind of have to sit there or do, just react. Like, you don't have to worry. I was like, is this person enjoying it? Is this doing that? And it's interesting that you say that because in some of my Googlings, they said that submissives are more likely to want to play more often than the dominant. And I can totally see that.
Well, yeah, you're getting all the fucking attention. You don't have to do shit.
Yeah, less responsibility. They're more up for a session than the other individual because they don't have to worry about it.
So if your partner ever wants to get down and you're just like not feeling it, just be like, oh yeah, baby, and let's do something kinky. Let's do BDSM, and like you tie my hands up.
Let me just lay here.
You tie my hands, and then also if you want to we don't have a blindfold, let's just use my sleep mask. And do you know that actually snoring is a sign of reaching sexual climax?
But, you mentioned partners versus females, males. It is more likely, I think no surprise here, it's more likely for the females to go into the submissive role than the dominant role.
That's so heteronormative. Oh,
it's true. If you look at the
know.
statistics, it is true. We kind of think of the dominatrix, right? That's like the thing that people think about. But in all actuality, it's more likely the woman is the submissive role.
And that's what makes me really question how much is inherent in this kind of interest or this kink and how much is learned.
Yeah.
Because it opens a whole nother can of worms of, is sex a contest naturally? Is somebody winning and somebody losing? Is somebody dominant, somebody submissive? Is that just a natural state of being a human and procreating? Or is that something we've learned through our society?
I have opinions, which we shall get to. So back to the psych. So Sigmund Freud. So he is the most famous, the most wackadoo psychiatrist of all times.
Oh, yes.
All of his stuff has been proven to be absolute bullshit, other than basically dreams can have meaning to our greater life.
Wait a minute. I thought my anal fixation, right? Like, I just really want somebody to
things up your butt.
My anus, which actually, to be fair, for my safety, my reputation.
Your safe word? Your safe word? It's your safe word, Sigmund Freud.
It's just Sigmund. I'm like, Sigmund, stop! And that's just what I would say to him if I met him. It's just like, Sigmund, stop. Anal retentive people are people who are very clean and organized, and that is not me. So obviously, I had no problem toilet training. Yes, I'm a millennial, and yes, I want a gold star.
Let me give you your gold star for your toilet training.
Thank you. Oh my God, I did it so good. I don't want to brag, but I'm still doing it to this day.
Good old Sigmund. He concluded that people who had this kind of preference, they have to come from some sort of childhood abuse. And that was prevalent. The DSM, the Diagnosis and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
Well, that's a mouthful. Don't pick that for your safe word.
I know. So the DSM and the American Psychiatric Association, they have previously defined these BDSM activities as sexual disorders. This was changed in the early 2000s. There was a lot of campaigning going on, a lot of pressure. So they took it off. There hasn't really been a lot of research on kind of the psychology of it, but there are a couple of often cited studies that say actually that BDSM practitioners are more mentally fit than the rest of us.
Oh, well, okay. So we should all be breaking out our writing crops to like get mental health, well-being. Where is that in our work email about mental health?
Yeah, in our need to knows, there's nothing about writing crops.
They're like, are you really stressed about the coronavirus? Just have somebody smack your genitals. Smack them around.
I would love that to be an update. That would be amazing. But so in these studies, they compared a control group to BDSM practitioners, and they found that these practitioners were actually less neurotic, more extroverted, more open to new experiences. I mean, no surprise there. More conscientious, less rejection sensitive, and had higher subjective well-being. They were, however, less agreeable, especially on the dominant side.
Well, that's good because you have to have your line in the sand. They're very litigious, I would imagine. They have contracts, whereins, therefores, to be's.
Hetero is that a word? Hetero?
Therefore, yes. Yes.
Therefore,
And
that's what I was trying to say.
An A and a
Therefore.
the mean different things. I'm not a lawyer, but if you are a lawyer who practices BDSM.
Law, BDSM law.
I mean, asking for a friend, give me like a template contract for a friend.
Curiously, the scores for the BDSM community, they were generally more favorable to those who had a dominant role versus the submissives.
Pulling up my collar. Something's afoot there.
Yeah, that's a little bit telling. But these studies that were done in Austria and some sort of Dutch country, I don't remember which, immediately I was like, red flag, because you think of like Eastern Europe as like the place where poop comes from, like poop porn comes from.
There's a lot of darkness in that part of the world at night, in the winter.
I can imagine. In the red light district. Woo.
No, I just mean like they got a lot of hours of darkness to kill, so they probably are like, what's going on? Let's do something new today.
Just Europe in general. Like they're much more sexually free than we are, right?
That's why they kicked our asses out. They said, you fucking prudes better get out of here. Either drop trow and get ready for some genital torture, or, take a 3-month boat journey.
Or find your own goddamn country.
Exactly. They're like, good luck. There's nothing between us and India. Ha! Suckers.
But there might be something off about these results. And this was presented by looking more closely at the control group that they gathered.
So this is a Laura original, I take it.
No, it is not. This was cited. And you can find it in the source docs.
We never post. Take us for our word.
No, it is cited. These results were based on where they gathered their control group, which was a little bit circumspect. It was a website that was all about secret keeping. And I can imagine what site this is. I don't know what site it is. They didn't say specifically. That might not be the best place to gather your control group, right? It's not maybe the best example of like everyday people because, people who keep secrets and feel so, everyone can keep secrets, right?
Secrets are no fun. Unless I am a part of one.
But, everyone keeps secrets. But if you are going to, like, websites to, spill your secrets or look at other people's secrets on a regular basis, maybe you're not the greatest template for mental health, right?
Well, yeah. You gotta lock that shit up.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not in your contract that you can be spilling that shit.
But the point is that, okay, this survey came out saying that BDSM individuals were more sane than the general population. More mentally fit than the others. But maybe that study's a little bit skewed. And there's not a lot of them, so there's not really much to say. But it is oft quoted, let me say.
That's totally fair because I don't think you're going to get a high benchmark of sanity for anybody on those websites, like you said.
Exactly. So there was another study that talked about long-term BDSM relationships. These are actually people who are more healthy and happier in their relationships. They have a higher level of communication. And looking at that, I can buy that. I think that tracks with me. They are couples that are engaging in consensual BDSM, and that means that they're communicating more, right? They're doing these pre and post recaps. What do they call it in Agile?
A retrospective.
Dear
God, if I have to have a
experience.
retrospective over every sexual encounter I have,
Fist of 5 takes on a whole new meaning. That is a deep cut, guys. And if you get it, I fucking love you. So it also stated that couples that engaged in this stuff, they also show a high level of hormonal changes. So there's a decrease in stress and increase in emotional bonding, because imagine, I mean, they talk about people and about how when they go through, very stressful situations together, there's like a bonding thing that goes on.
Yeah, you're saying trauma bonding. I honestly just think this is bonding because you're talking about something intimate.
I think it may be a little bit of a column A, a little bit of column B. So there's trauma bonding.
But there's no trauma. If you've agreed to everything that's going to happen, and you said it before, it's a scene. It's not like spontaneous. There's nothing spontaneous about it. You make a game plan. You execute it. That's like saying somebody who gets murdered in a play is experienced trauma.
I mean, okay, I get your point. I get your point. But there was some stuff in the research that I've done. They talk about like there's a term called the drop. And that's basically like after a particularly intense session, like everyone might feel a little bit shaky, very emotional. There might be some tears involved because, even though maybe consensually you've agreed to all this beforehand, your lizard brain doesn't necessarily recognize the difference between something that you've agreed to and something that you're experiencing. So there is a little bit, I think, of intensity that happens in these sessions that us normies, us vanilla individuals, that's people who have regular sex, don't experience.
I can see where, yes, they would have higher good stuff because there's so much communication. And if you are heteronormative and you're like very much a God-fearing person, you probably don't talk about sex with your partner a lot. So I think talking about anything makes you feel more bonded with someone.
Absolutely. No, I would agree with that.
But then again, some things that are just intense make you cry. A lot of people cry at their wedding. Is that unhealthy?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I see what you mean, though, that very intense emotional experiences can result in that kind of overwhelming emotional experience.
Hey there, you know what time it is. It's time we thank you for your time by giving you some of our time in our shout out section here. Today's home shout out goes to none other than the Big Apple itself, the island of Manhattan, the greatest city in the world. I heard that if we can make it here, we can make it anywhere. So please keep sending us your love. And if you want to hear your hometown here, be sure to hit download and tell your friends about us and have them hit download too. Or you could skip to the front of the line by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast or anywhere else you can leave a review, but just make sure we know about it so we can get you your shout out. As always, download, rate, and review, and you might just hear about who? You. Thank you for listening. Now back to the show.
Okay, so that's the end of the research. All this research made me think about, is this kind of part of human nature to crave subjugation or to crave dominance? Because this is an old practice. It's not something new that we made up.
And that's a good point, and that's what one of the questions that stuck out to me. Do we crave it? Is subjugation, is dominance, is that naturally part of sex? Is that something that's ingrained in us from evolutionary biology, or is that something we've maybe learned? I did some Googling because I am a grade A researcher.
Question mark.
Yes. So I did a Google search and I did find out, fun fact, that in the list of kinkiest countries in the world, guess who ranks at number 1?
Are you serious?
US of A.
Ooh.
Land of the free, home of the cock and ball torture. And guess who came in second?
Canada?
No, they're too nice for that. Here's a clue. It's the shriveled up husk that America was born out of. England, number 2. So I'm seeing a theme. I'm seeing a theme
I
here.
Hear you.
Starting with fucking white people. Like, this reeks of white people shit. Come on. This is the whitest activity in the world.
On Wikipedia, when we looked at all these very graphic images, there was a particularly common element to all this bullshit. And it was all a lot of pink white penises.
it makes me think that this kind of power dynamic is not inherent to being a human. It's inherent to being a human in our culture and the kind of society that we were raised
Let me
in.
counterpoint to that, because I do think that it's a little bit part of who we are as humans. But I think the
Fetishization?
There you go. That is more.
I said a word right.
There you go. That is more of this white people bullshit, this American English kind of thing. I think that it is a little bit natural. I mean, if you look at animals, I mean, God, sex is so violent and awful in nature documentaries. You know, that is kind of part of nature. But because we're more repressed, we have kind of, it's overblown. You know what I mean? Like, we've created this very fetish version of it because we're like, no, it's wrong. Tamp it down, tamp it down. And we all know what happens when you try to tamp this shit down. It just
makes it exciting.
Exactly.
But here's the flip of where I start to argue with myself. Is it prominent in our culture? Because we are a culture where women actually have the agency to say no. Like, you know, nobody's out there in a very patriarchal society even asking a woman what she wants. So are they already kind of engaged in these relationships without the consent, without the contracts, where a man is able to kind of express his desires, his wants? He's getting that kind of top experience without really worrying about consent.
So you're saying in other cultures, they don't have to worry about this, where in our culture, women have more agency and thus have to consent?
What I'm saying is, like, thinking about Things Fall Apart, right? With a book we talked about way back in the day. Okonkwo had his compound. He was the master of that compound. He could have sex whenever, whatever he wanted with his wives. I don't really think you need to have that kind of dominance play in that because it's life.
Yeah, no, I think you're pretty accurate. Like, who the hell wants to play with dog collars and spreader bars when you're applying a psychological dog collar and spreader bar?
Yes.
So does what we do in the bedroom kind of say something about us as people? I think that what you're indicating is, yeah, it kind of does. That we, first of all, we live comfortable lives. So we have to manufacture some sort of danger or excitement, right? Because we don't have those kind of experiences in our everyday life. But I think to a deeper level, like, does that want to be a dominant or to be a submissive? Does that say something about us as people? Does it mean, you know, that I what do they say in life? There's sheep and there's wolves, you know? So if I, you know, enjoy a little slap and tickle, does that mean that that I'm a sheep?
No, I don't think so, because you can't escape the wider implications of society. Like, this is what society has trained you to do. So as a woman, and like what you saw in the research is that the majority of subs are women, I feel like it's able to explore that kind of gender normative piece in an area that's safe. And you might be your most truest self with someone you trust at that level. But I don't know if that means that's who you are, because we all have inclinations that we don't act on and we don't put out there publicly. So because you have a certain desire or some certain interest in the privacy of your own bedroom with somebody you tell your deepest, darkest secrets to, I don't think that reflects who you are as a person, because we all have bad instincts or bad desires. Like, I would love to eat a whole bag of M&Ms in one sitting.
How
but
big
I
of
don't.
a bag are we talking about here?
Like a family size. It says to share. And I'm like, M&Ms, stop judging me.
The share size is not a family size.
The family one with the zipper at the top. Like, you're actually gonna fucking steal
Yeah, the
it
zipper top.
and
Okay,
save it for later. What a joke, M&Ms. Ha ha. This is to shame me when I eat it all at once.
But I think you said something interesting. It was about trust. Okay, so this was something that I in my readings of all these different articles about how great and wonderful and loving and trusting it is, my immediate thought was Trust, the sexiest of all emotions. Like, for me, thinking about sexual fantasies that I don't necessarily act on or publicly admit to, trust is not on the top list of what is going on there.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I get that it's not the top of the list, but the trust is the fundamental piece that lets you explore the things that you're kind of interested in without worrying that it's going to go too far. Why that becomes this power dynamic, physical pain inflicting, binding, hurting thing, I don't know. I think that's a symptom of our culture and what we're told not to like and dislike. But the trust is what enables you to have the sexual fantasies come to life.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I think that comes down to why BDSM for me has been essentially unfulfilling. Because I have dabbled in this a little bit. It personally in the bedroom is that it's never been as fulfilling that I imagined it to be, because in my fantasies it's always very exciting and very risky and very maybe even tinged with danger or fear, and that's what makes the fantasy attractive. But when it comes to reality, it's no, I love this person loves me, so therefore this situation is never what I imagine it to be, because I know that there's no risk involved. And risk, for whatever reason, is a sexy emotion. So I guess that's part of the thing that I don't understand, reading all this stuff about trust and contracts and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, ugh, boring. It doesn't get to the desired outcome.
But one might also suggest that the inclination to be involved with BDSM is something beyond just a fantasy or an interest. I've seen research that people in the community would say that it is an orientation on the same level with homosexuality, with bisexuality, that this is something they're born preferring.
I don't know that I buy that. I mean, I think that with anything, it's a combination of, all right, Laura's vulnerability corner. I can only speak for me. The times in my life that I have been more interested in these things are when I was less mentally healthy, that I had a lot of self-image issues or self-worth issues. But those times were times when I wanted to be punished, for who I was or what I was thinking or what I was doing. It was this idea of, you're not worth anything, so let me validate it with these sexual experiences.
But I would say that experience is probably not uncommon, but then also the people in the community might see it different.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when I was looking at a lot of this research, there was, again, so much talk about how healthy it is and how normal it is and how wonderful it is. And I kept thinking about, I think the lady doth protest too much. There was almost no criticism of the BDS community that I could find online. I think that comes back to this whole idea of kink shaming, that you can't say anything against it. Again, because if it's a sexual orientation, you can't possibly talk about where that comes from, what maybe darker life experiences that might lead to these thought processes. And I just think it comes down to is that sex is complicated. People are complicated. There is a darker side to everything, but people just seem to gloss over it because we don't want to kink shame. We don't want to make people feel bad. And it's not about making people feel bad. It's looking at your thought processes, right? Where does this come from? What life experiences have led you to this place?
Has sparked it. And here, that's me opening this can of worms. What porn wormhole have you gone down that introduces these kind of ideas into your head, right? Where I would say if it is a orientation, there are certain pieces or certain things that have appealed to you from a young age that stand out in your memory. Whereas if you just started if your desire to come on somebody's face comes
that's
from
not
watching
surprising.
porn, like that is not an orientation, because that is what you have been taught that sex is. So what pornography you consume does influence your sexual preferences, and in that case, it's definitely not an orientation because it's taught.
This is hard because I don't want to reveal so much about myself, but before I had ever seen any pornography, I'm talking younger age, I'm talking 10, 11, there was some interest in this sort of power dynamic of sexuality that piqued my interest at a young age. I don't know where that comes from. I don't think that I was born with it. I am certain that this comes from life experiences that I care not to share at this moment, but I'm certain that these things come from a life experience of these scenarios, this power dynamic piqued an interest in me that was not necessarily born of seeing it done, from pornography. And I don't think it's something that I was born with. I think it's something that comes from life experience that what is it they say that you teach people how to treat you, or you accept you accept the
Oprah
love
said
you
that.
think that you deserve. I don't know either, but that's something that I've heard before.
I don't know who said that.
That touches something very deep inside of me. Again, at another point in my life, I'm in a different place right now. I'm in a much healthier place right now. But this is what all this brought to mind, is you accept the love that you think that you deserve. And maybe that's not PC. It's definitely not PC, especially not with what the community wants people to think about BDSM. But from my personal experience, that is what came to mind, is that there was a time in my life that I accepted the love. I wanted the love that I thought I deserved, which from any normal person wouldn't have looked like love at all.
Well, no, exactly. Even if you, like you said, are looking for the love that you think you deserve, if you are consenting, if you are, everybody's towing the line and you're getting something out of it, even if it's not just sexual gratification, even if it's something else, like, I'd say more power to you, because you're consenting into it and you're getting something out of it.
I think that's a good point. That, okay, maybe you do have these darker inclinations that come from a variety of places, but you've maybe found a safer way to explore it than other ways. I think that's a really good point that I didn't necessarily consider, that we all have things in our lives that could lead us down a dark path. But if you've chosen this path that allows you to explore this and explores it with someone that you love and trust and feel safe in, then good for you, because you've averted the darker path of God, who knows where that leads. You know what I mean? That you've created a safer outlet for it. So power to you.
Like, to answer the question, does liking to be spanked in the bedroom mean that I hate myself? And I think the answer is, God, it's unsatisfying, but I mean, it's a myth.
I think it's an unsatisfactory answer, but that's the answer to everything. It depends.
Spoiler alert. Stop listening to our podcast. We already answered all the questions we'll ever ask. I don't know. It's difficult.
The answer is that it's nuanced, but I think we've landed on an even better answer through our exploration, in that maybe there is this darker side of you that comes from your life experiences, but you have found a safer route to do it, to explore it, and to lead to satisfaction. And that is a good thing. So maybe spanking, maybe wanting to be spanked, maybe wanting to be pussy tortured or cock and ball tortured does mean maybe somewhere that you hate yourself, but you found a way to do it with love and acceptance. So high five.
That feels like a good spot to end it on.
Does it?
Yes. I think, like, even if you hate yourself, we all do a little bit.
We all hate ourselves.
We're going to leave you on a high note. You hate yourself, but it is okay because we do too. Find an outlet that's good for you. And it rhymes.
I'm going to go hate myself, and I'm going to go eat the pint of Ben & Jerry's that I have in the fridge.
But you know what would make us hate ourselves a little bit less?
If you left us a review?
Yes, if you hit download, rate, and review, it means the world to us. We are two nobodies scrapping to get a place in the world of like millions of podcasts. So if you like what you heard today, and this one really went off on, like, it was spiraled. If you liked it, tell somebody about it. Do all those other things. We appreciate you.
We want to hear from you. Send us an email at rude@impolitesocietypodcast.com. All right. Am I hearing, is this some whipping? Yeah, it's much too, it's the drums.
I can only imagine the red skin under what's happening there.
So sexy.
Okay, we out for the night. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.